So it's a real pleasure to be here today talking with Thomas Camilleri. And Thomas, you are from the Global School Alliance. You are the Global School Alliance. So tell us about that, because I know a bit about it, you know loads about it, but lots of people don't know enough about it. So tell us about it.
Magic. Thank you so much, Helen. So actually, the Global School Alliance is a relatively new initiative that we launched in the spring of 2020. And it came from a lot of the work that we'd done. So we actually began life as a company in 2011. And that really started from, so basically I was super lucky at school to learn Mandarin. Went on a school trip in age 15, year 9, spent 3 weeks over in Yunnan province. And that, it was, structured classes in the morning and then cultural activities and meeting, basically going out and being paired up with university students in Yunnan and then doing all sorts. And it was the most formative 3 weeks of my life. And there's a vast majority of what I do now professionally and personally really stemmed from that experience. So again, I was very fortunate that I was the first Brit to take Chinese as an A level. And so at the time, it was still kind of for native speakers. So it was very, very content heavy. So by the time I'd finished, I'd actually done the majority of a uni degree. So I moved to China at 18 and was there between 18 and 22 teaching English, which again, gave me a really, really good opportunity to, kindergarten, primary school, secondary, middle, high, the full spectrum in a number of different areas through China. And when I came back from China, the kind of beginnings of all of this started around the teaching and learning of Mandarin.
Yes.
Very rapidly expanded into international partnerships. So always in my mind was, at school, I wasn't academically inspired, shall we say. So I was much more practical and things that took my interest and I had a passion in, I would absolutely thrive in. Those things that I didn't, they were deprioritized. So
sounds very discerning, actually.
Well, the thing is, for me, that was the key indicator and really works as a compass actually for all of the opportunities that we develop. Is that what's in my mind is immersion and first-hand experience are the mother of all curiosities. And realistically, through setting up international partnerships and through being invited by one of the local councils up in Wirral, who had a sister city relationship formalized with a government partner in China. I was always looking for, how do we make this real, basically? How do we turn this school-based, classroom-based, very sterile approach to a language really is a toolkit for getting to know people, and how do I bring some reality, some immersive experiences in? So we set up the first partnership, actually off the back of this kind of civic level, this government level relationship. Took a number of schools over. They got set up in a sister school partnership, which came with its leadership delegations, student exchanges, online kind of communications and projects. And that really developed. So from kind of 2014 through to 2019, that was one of the core things that we actually spent a lot of time within. And that was under the company banner of True Partnerships Group. Now, within True Partnerships, we're arguably the forefront, the leaders in this immersive education kind of experience. We're sending thousands of kids to and from China each year. It put me in a position where I got to do the thing that I really love the most, which is speaking Chinese, going to China, showing young people, and I think really it's actually part of it is me reliving that experience I had over and over and over and over and over again. Being able to see it in the students and the young people who
that kind of opening up, that kind of massive awareness,
and the inspiration, like coming back and being like, holy moly, I might live in a rural town in South England. However, the world is a very big place, and there are lots of, and actually the people on the other side of the world are very amenable. They're actually not crazy aliens that are trying to take over the world. They are just like me and you. They enjoy having fun with friends. They enjoy learning. They enjoy growing and developing. And so obviously as things developed, we really identified that, we'd done China, and I was personally obviously leading that. I knew how that was going to work. But we started to look in 2019, okay, well, we know what we're doing here. We really should be opening this up. And we were starting to get inquiries from other governments and embassies in the UK and around the world, and schools from all over the show saying, look, how can we get involved? How can we participate? It wasn't actually until Brexit, where, a lot of schools in the UK lost access to Erasmus funding, and quite importantly, the Etwinning platform. And so previously, we were, a lot of what we've done has been in a parallel to some British Council initiatives, but the Etwinning platform was really around obviously virtual partnerships and connecting with schools within the EU, doing joint projects. But it always was a bit, as a platform came, it was a little bit restrictive, and obviously being restricted to the EU meant that our Chinese schools were kind of out of the show. So actually, the GSA, when we launched it, was really about, okay, well, the timing's right for us to go out and actually create a network which was very globally minded. And schools were really crying out to continue that great work, but they lost the platform, they lost the support. It was a kind of, people kind of floating in the wind a little bit. So when we launched the GSA, it was really fundamentally around bringing pioneering global educators together, people who care about global capital, cultural capital, people who can see the benefit in not only sharing the things that they are passionate around, the tips and the tricks, and how they are actually, as frontline educators, how they're getting on, but also listening to others, listening to people in international schools in Tunisia, in schools in Lima, figuring out, how do we get around teaching hybrid learning through COVID. And it became a really nice, especially in the early days, a really nice, relatively small hub of passionate educators who really wanted to come together to share how they were getting on. And so when we identified, okay, well, what are the similarities, and actually what are we really trying to achieve here? And what we came to was, understanding, true partnerships from the beginning was really around this idea of uniting the world in true partnerships. So TRUE is actually, TRUE is actually an acronym that I came across through a lot of our work and developing relationships and partnerships in China. And it's an acronym for trust, respect, understanding, and equilibrium. Our equilibrium can be kind of changed out for empathy and equity. But this idea that
I like equilibrium, though. I think that's that balance, isn't it?
Hugely. And it's and when you are working with different cultures, and our team is, our cultural background from everyone on the team is from all over the place. So linguistically, from culturally, from life expectations and aspirations, understanding how to come together, building trust, understanding how to respect one another, growing depth of our understanding, and then keeping all of that in a balance to try and achieve some things where it's like the hidden meaning within and we were, to kind of get to that goal, it's like, how are you actually going to manage that? Education is a big word, and I think what we are really talking about is ways of learning. And the idea for us was, okay, well, we decided upon raising standards of quality education globally, which allowed us, we always knew it had to be on a global platform because there's so much great stuff going on. What was lacking was probably the connectivity. Like, there was great little enclaves of amazing innovations that really, with a little bit of a platform, a little bit of interconnectivity, could really benefit one another. So raising standards allowed us to really explore, well, what does that really mean? What are the standards? Who sets them? Why are they the way they are? Like, how long have we had an education system, which effectively was designed 100 years ago? Like, who are setting standards, and what should they actually be? And then this idea of quality education gives, it's more of an opportunity for discussion more than us dictating what it is.
So that's a good point there, because I was going to ask you, what does this look like in practice then? Is it, so if you think about people coming onto, so a teacher coming onto the platform, a leader coming onto the platform, what does that look like in practice? What would they gain from it? What would they give? What would the outcomes be?
Yeah.
How would you measure that? How would you know it's really good?
Absolutely. So as it stands at the minute, the GSA, the Global School Alliance, really began with events. So we would run, to begin with, there was a monthly virtual conference where we invite other educators, we'd decide on the theme, and we'd invite other educators to come in and basically speak.
Just talk about what they were doing.
To basically share what they are excited about at the minute.
Yeah.
Like, based on the theme, is there a challenge that they have a good solution for? Is there something that they want to bring into the curriculum, or a specific way that they are tackling part of a curriculum demand? And then give them a platform to basically invite other educators to come and listen. Now that evolved into a whole stream of events that we have basically one a week at the minute, and it actually allowed us to expand into inviting other basically private organizations and other education businesses that actually, when we looked at who has the time, energy, money to innovate, it doesn't always happen in frontline education. A lot of the innovation, a lot of the stuff that's coming down the pipeline in 5, 10, 15 years is actually coming from the private sector. And so finding a way that we can invite people who've got exciting solutions and being able to give an indication of what's coming down as the pipeline allowed us to create this kind of overlapping community, which provides value to everybody that kind of turned up. Now, so that was a platform that really focused on helping people with school improvement, with teacher development, and student transformations. Now, fundamentally, people would come on, they would attend the events, they'd attend live, depending on what the time zone was, or they could get the recording. That then developed into, okay, well, how can we really make this active connectivity of relationship building and partnership building? How do we fundamentally make that as easy as possible? And so what we ended up deciding on is we were developing essentially another platform. It's kind of like a social education platform where, similar to Etwinning, with more functionality, where you'd go on, you'd register an account, fill in a profile, and you would basically be able to go and connect with other educators on the platform. You could
in different parts of the world,
in 113 countries, I think, at the minute. So as it stands, I think it's about close to 5,500 schools and educators represented on the platform now. And the sort of, I suppose, the main tools that they would use at the minute is setting up in virtual partnerships. So they'd spend a bit of time on there, they'd have the ability to have a conversation around what might be happening in the world, or we spend a lot of time bringing other educators into writing blogs and authoring some content on there. So a conversation will be struck, and we will either have two different outcomes. One outcome is joining a joint partnership, or another outcome is a joint project. Now, the way that we are able to kind of set them up is there's an online sort of course and learning segment to the site. So
about how to prepare for it, how to prepare well for it.
Absolutely. So we either create the content, put it on there, make it available for educators to use, or in fact, you can. So if you are running, let's say, a Global Dimensions week, and you've done loads of great work with PowerPoints, workbooks, you've got some pre-recordings, you can upload that into a course.
Just to share it. Then.
Exactly, which is essentially the infrastructure. Like, if you've got some great content, we'll give you the tools to not only utilize it easier within your school, but again, put it out there, share it with other people. And so a lot of the kind of ongoing development within the Global School Alliance and the platform itself is really around, okay, well, who else can we bring onto here? Beyond the sharing nature, what do educators around the world, and granted, their needs and requirements are different. So
wherever, and also whatever stage they're at as well. Where their school is, what their problems are, what their how they want to develop, all of that.
And it's again with this idea of qualifying or quantifying what the standards are, and then how to raise them. It's really about looking for the similarities in education systems around the world rather than the differences. And understanding fundamentally, we are trying to develop a young person into a useful member of society as they leave. Somebody that can identify something they actually care about, something they're actually capable of delivering a good result on. and something that hopefully will economically support them, their family, and their dreams of the future. So that the outcomes aren't really that complicated.
But what does success look like, though? I mean, for you, what does success look like?
So it depends on the audience member that we're talking about. So we're not, so fundamentally, we are interested in student transformations. So that would be like the end point is, are we having a tangible impact on student communities? Like, I can't be in
and that could be various different types of impact as well, then, couldn't it?
Definitely.
Depending on what the outcomes were that people wanted.
And whether they be outcomes focused on, raising awareness of other opportunities, global dimensions, whether it's a case of actually, if I can't find work in my town that I want, or a community I relate to, going to somewhere else, past COVID, let's see what happens there. But being able to be more mobile is a realistic opportunity. And whether it actually is something that is, personal development related, whether it's something around actually finding a passion and the purpose, or whether it's something as simple as going to find employability, finding a job, finding an apprenticeship. There are a number of different pathways that as we develop over time, that we want to provide not only a network of like-minded people, but the toolkit and the resources to support them in delivering it. Now, educators, schools and institutions, and the places of learning in the loosest sense, is really a sort of leveraging effect for us to really have that impact on the end user, which is the students. And so kind of this ongoing conversation around quality education. So, well, how should learning be employed? Like, how is having a centralized building where the people are kind of split by age, split by capacities, split by, is that the right way to do it? And engaging with there's a group of schools actually called the Green School, started in Bali.
Yes.
I've got some friends who live over there, spent some time in Bali, and their whole approach is amazing. And yes, it's beautiful. Yes, they've got like award-winning
outdoors,
and bamboo buildings. Yeah, it is stunning. But the basic principles of exploring a different way to learn is at the heart of what we're trying to develop as a conversation. And there are large scale entrepreneurs like Elon Musk, who he himself had an approach to what learning should look like. There is masses of money and investment going into online learning, hybrid learning, AI, whether it be VR or AR. There's so much going on around this question of actually, how should we be learning? How should we be measuring success? And we're not coming from an angle of we have the answer. We're coming from the angle.
Yes, because I was going to ask you just that question, actually, because it's like, there's so much there, and much of what you're describing is what almost every teacher, every educator on a daily basis wants to get better and better at in lots of ways. I can see the global dimension is something not everybody does touch on in their daily life, although I personally believe that it is really important, and that global competency is actually one of our core competencies. It underpins everything now, in terms of, because we live in a complex world, which requires people to be able to communicate in order to find the solutions to these complex problems. But what is it that I mean,
what is the answer? What is the solution? And annoyingly, I think there are multiple answers depending on the individual. And in a perfect, potentially impossible world, you would have a mentor and a student, and that mentor would walk that student through a journey of learning. And they would test, they would measure, they would prod, they would read.
A series of mentors.
And the learning journey of the individual is ultimately, from my point of view, where the solution should be built from. Now, doing that at scale is very difficult, and our institutions, the way the world is set up at the minute, is not set up to be able to do that. And so, again, I can speak from my personal experience, and those people who are built like me, I can speak very clearly to individuals like me and how I would like to be taught. But I know my wife, for example, who is Chinese. So I have the global dimensions on a daily basis.
Your family, yes.
And my kids who are again are mixed children.
Yeah.
They have two different languages at home. They're two different cultures. And for me, that is not just important. It's a superpower that I go into new situations and stuff that's, meeting somebody from a different culture that I don't know and had no experience with. I am so much more comfortable now having the experience I've had in understanding I might be naive, I might be ignorant, I might not know what I'm talking about, I might not know how this individual wants to be spoken to, and actually going in.
Strike me as that. Yes.
And having the ability to fundamentally know how to interact with the unknown in life. Because one thing that really irritates me about how education is as a whole is set up is it's very well and very clearly defined. This is what you need to learn. These are the answers. This is the question. These are the possible answers. You will get measured and marked on these possible answers.
Well, politicians would have us think like that, of course. That's not what education is it?
No. At its fundamental root, no.
Yeah.
And when we talk about operationally and how it's delivered and the kind of restraints, that to me is the frustrating part. And now understanding from our point of view, what we are looking to do is to build, when we come across a solution that we can have a tangible impact on. So for example, if we work with a group of schools in Indonesia, they will have a really very specific set of issues or of requirements for resources or wanting to connect with somebody who can help them with the financial management of their school trust. And that is a very, very specific thing that, if I was to try and tell them, look, this is how you should do it, it probably wouldn't be the right answer, but I can connect them with somebody
who does know the answer or can guide them. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's rather than us trying to come across with this is Einstein's formula to general relativity. This is the one formula that fits everything. We are coming from the approach that there will be different challenges with different answers. That we want to create an environment which is a nutritious environment that you can come, and I'm not going to tell you the answer, but you can come and find it. If you want to find the answer to your problem, you can come and find it here. It does take a little bit of effort from the individual, and they do need to be inspired to want to learn, and they do need to be inspired to want to contribute.
And where does that inspiration come from in your experience? Are you inspiring them?
Am I inspiring them? Maybe from not directly. What I have learned is that if I try and do everything myself, it never goes very far. So I'm more interested in building infrastructure, building tools, building something removed from me that ultimately can have that effect. And I think that what we are looking to do is to shine a light on those who do have that energy. Yes. And to be honest with you, if you look at 100 people in a room, not everybody's going to come with barrels of energy every single day. But if you focus on the 10 or 12 that are really keen to get things moving, that becomes infectious, and that becomes something that inspires,
generates energy.
100%.
Yes. Yeah. So you talked earlier, because this is fascinating, and I'm sure you want to encourage people to come to you, to check out the website, to see how they can get involved and stuff. But you talked earlier about a superpower, having that superpower.
Yeah.
If I could ask you one final overarching question, and imagine that you had the superpower of being able to look into the future 5-10 years time, what do you think the global education system will actually look like then? What do you think?
What it will actually look like, or I would love it to look like?
Well, tell me both of those then.
Okay, so ultimately, I would really like to see, and probably a hybrid approach of an online and offline approach, where students from every culture country can be learning actually together. And I haven't quite yet come to how this would look in detail, but what I do know is that having a common goal and aligning to a common cause is a really, really powerful way to connect people from different backgrounds. And the lessons learned on the journey are often more important than the fundamental solution to the problem. If that makes sense. So what I would love to see is essentially an online school, a school in the cloud that young people, and I say young people, but learning is a lifelong pursuit. So people who want to learn can come together initially in a virtual space, clustered or aligned to solve a certain problem. And again, whether it's the UN's SDGs, whether it's something it's a great framework to use actually, because it identifies very clearly a set of problems we can all look to achieve or to do something around. But essentially having a problem that people are aligned to come together to solve, and through the journey of working together, through the journey of, okay, well, you tell me how you are cleaning your marine life on the beaches of Indonesia, and I will take it to where I go surfing in England, and I'll apply the similar principles, and then have an online meeting place for this, as I say, this problem solving, which then can be taken offline, and then can really be facilitating face-to-face collaboration in the pursuit of solving these problems. So being able to go and meet my friend in Indonesia and have him take me or have her take me to the beaches and say, well, look, this is how we stop all this plastic rubbish getting into the water. This is what we actually do afterwards. Yes, this is a very low-tech approach to it, but it's functional and it works. I can then go and apply that to something locally. So the tricky bit with combining something that I'd love to see happen and the reality of the world.
What will it actually look like?
What it would actually look like. Frustratingly, I don't know. It's the first time I would have said this in a very long time. I don't know if the world's going to get more international or less over the next 5 to 10 years. I'm not convinced with the way that certain government regulation is looking, that travel and, crossing board, moving and spending time in other countries is a much, much, much bigger conversation as education. It becomes political, it becomes immigration, it becomes much more convoluted. So what I think will actually be able to happen is I would hope to see more student exchanges. I'd hope to see increased student mobility. I'm liking what's going on with Turing at the minute. I'm glad the UK government stepped up and provided some other funding for student mobility. I'm glad that that's not just a European thing. I'm glad it's a worldwide thing. What I'd love to be able to see is I'd be able to, a platform like ours, where we can have, online projects, which are essentially challenges, providing a platform for people from all around the world to come together and say, look, I really want to work with you on this collaborative effort. Okay, cool. I like you. We're on the same page. Our students have worked together virtually for the past 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. How about we go and, I'd love to come and see you. And I'd love for that to be able to become a real thing where, students in Tunisia would come over to Exeter and spend a week with their friends there, and then traveling to Brazil and the rest of it. So 5 to 10 years, if we can get that locked in at a primary, secondary, and really fundamentally at a kind of college university level, open that to be a bit more practical, I'd be encouraged. Whether we get there or not, I'm not sure.
Do you know what? Let's work on it. Let's try and make it.
Sure. I'm totally top of that.
Do that. Yeah. Well, look, thank you so much. Really enjoyed our conversation. I look forward to future conversations on a similar vein, and good luck. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Ellen.